Hey, I'm back. Sorry it's been a while. I've been slacking on keeping up with the YouTube channel, but that should be changing over the summer. Right now I'm a full-time college student and I'm actually recording this the Sunday before finals. But this next upcoming quarter I'll only be taking a single 5-credit class, so more time for overclocking, I guess. Now let's get into the main part of the video, my entries into Cheapaz Chips Season 3. It was kind of a failure, but that's what I get for not doing enough research. Not that I was going to be gaining any top scores anyways with my card. In case you didn't know, Cheapaz Season 3 was based around the AMD Cedar Core GPUs. These are all Terra Scale 2 chips with 80 shading units. They are quite cheap on eBay and I just so happened to have modded one a few months back and made a video about those mods, so I thought, why not enter? I did test out 2 different cards and found the first one I had still seemed to be the best, especially when under dry ice. For the rest of my bench, I was a little bit limited since the competition called for quad cores only. I do have a B350 motherboard, but I only have a 6-core Ryzen for it, and that's my most powerful CPU. I also have a Z170 motherboard, but no LGA 1151 CPUs at all. In the end, the most powerful quad core I could muster was the venerable i7-920. Or at least it would be venerable if it could do 5 GHz. Considering the GPU at hand, this isn't that big of a limitation in these modern benchmarks, as you'll see in a bit. I ended up doing the actual runs for competition scores over the course of 2 different days. The first one was really only for testing the card on Skydiver and seeing how the 920 scaled on dry ice. I could only get the i7 up to about 4.65-ish GHz, which made all the dry ice I used on the CPU pod not worth it, as I have gotten the same CPU to do 4.5 on ambient. On the second day of benching, that's when I really went for it. I decided to continue with Skydiver and was able to get a graphics score of 1635 with a whopping 1540 MHz on the core, which made me very happy. Unfortunately, that's where the happiness stops. The next 2 benchmarks, Heaven and 3D Mark 06, are quite a bit longer in runtime and I found much heavier limitation on the core clock. I decided to run Heaven next and was able to still run a pretty high core clock of 1490 and keep 900 MHz on the memory. This was not too bad as far as speed goes. My final score for submission though was only 312.9, and I was really hoping to surpass 325. It was later when I was looking over my screenshots that I realized I had forgotten to try changing the LOD, since this was the only benchmark where I could get away with it. And then when I was actually submitting my scores, I was promptly reminded that I need to get a verification file for submitting Heaven scores to HWBot, which I had also forgotten to do while I was benching, so no Heaven score. In case you were curious, if I could have validated the score, it would have put me at 10th place for the benchmark bout and would have added 20 points to my total competition score, approximately. But whatever, a learning experience. I was able to get a 3D Mark 06 score, and that benchmark was pretty brutal on Sub-Zero, as it is approximately 8 minutes long. I only got a final score of 4475, which was quite miserable. I was able to complete the run at 1400 MHz on the core, but I forgot to change the memory for the final run and noticed later that I only ran memory at 800 MHz, which is stock for this card. So yeah, that score kinda sucked, but I'll take it. The last benchmark was the graphics score for 3D Mark 11 entry. Wait, entry isn't in the demo? Shoot. Guess that means I need to buy the full version. How much? $20 for a single benchmark? Forget that. 3D Mark 11 ended up being another score I just couldn't get for the competition. For the 2 that I did get though, I placed 2nd for Skydiver and 10th for 3D Mark 06. This brought me to an overall placement of 12th place. Not the best I could have gotten, but definitely not the worst. One of these days I'll get the hang of competitive OC. Anyways, in the end, the card overclocked fairly nicely, all things considered, with a slight issue that you've probably noticed if you're at all familiar with these cards. I'm not entirely sure what the cause of the issue is, but all the 5450s I tested had some pretty bad memory for overclocking. I mean, they are GDDR3, which I believe is fundamentally similar to DDR2, so I guess you can't expect much past about 1000 MHz on most samples. The weird part is how the memory seemed to only be able to overclock to its upper limit when the V-core was closer to stock. My research on this has been pretty thin on results, but I'm assuming this is just a limitation of the memory controllers on these Cedar GPUs. I ended up deciding that this was just something I would have to live with and keep pushing high V-core as I was bothering to put that core under dry ice. Competition aside, I want to talk a bit about what's next for the channel and why I've been slacking so much on making videos. I'm currently a college student, and although I've recently quit my part-time job to focus solely on school, it's still a fair amount of my time being taken up, and at that, even when I do have spare time, I don't necessarily feel like doing any extreme overclocking with it. As a result, I haven't done anything in the past few months that I've considered worth making a video about, at least not yet, as I do have many projects that are a work in progress. Okay, that was actually kind of a lie. I did of course have to do everything for Cheapaz, mostly in the month of May, as well as making my new CPU pot. I don't really want to spoil too much about that, as a more thorough video will be made about it later once I've had a chance to use it more. Beyond that, I do have a lot of hardware on hand currently, and I'm weighing my options for setting up additional test benches in my limited workspace so that I can run multiple platforms for some serious GPU overclocking. So expect OC session and mod overview videos in the near future. I should have plenty of time to make a couple of videos a month once summer quarter hits near the end of June. I will only be taking a single 5-credit class, and I will have to study for a certification exam during July, but nothing much other than that. And this is about all I have to say for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I am thinking about doing all my videos as voiceovers like this one, as it allows me to gain much better audio quality and be much more concise by writing a script beforehand, but let me know what you think in the comments. Until then, I will see you in the next one.